TopMedTalk.
Well, hello. We are back for our last interview at Anesthesiology 2022 here in New Orleans, Louisiana. It's TopMedTalk in the exhibit hall. I'm Desiree Chappell. I'm your host, and I'm joined by Professor Monty Mythen, my co-host. Hello, Monty.
Nearly the end, Desiree. It's been absolutely fantastic. We're talking to two great guests, including Bobby Jean Schweitzer, who's going to be a special guest at our Ireland EBPOM meeting next year.
That's right.
What's the best meeting in the world, Desiree? Apart from the ASA,
EBPOM Ireland, that's held in Dingle, Ireland, the West Coast. It is literally the most amazing place on earth.
I've never said big shout out to Dingle. I've never used those words, but big shout out to Dingle.
Ireland. Okay, hold on. We're letting them. They're telling us that we have to get out of here.
Closing,
so
yeah.
we're gonna.
They're closing
time.
And they'll start ripping up the carpet in a second.
In just a second. All right, they finished that. So, Monty, great conversations, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest before they kick us out of this place. Dr. Jeff Simmons, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I love listening to you guys. I listen to you guys in the car, and whenever I can. I think it's just a great venue for talking about perioperative medicine, and I think it spreads the word of how important it is.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you're a TopMedTalk fan. I don't know if maybe what you continue to listen to is that same one that we did back in the day.
I listen to mine. I just listen to mine on repeat. It's the best episode.
It really was really good. Jeff, you're really active on social media. That's where I tend to follow you personally a lot, and I love the messages that you are putting out there and the word that you're spreading about perioperative medicine and specifically enhanced recovery and actually the work that you're doing at home. So for our listeners, tell us a little bit about your background.
So 2014, I took over the perioperative medicine clinic at UAB after Tom Vetter left and have been doing that as a medical director for the last several years. Just prior to the pandemic, I took a health system vice president role for community practices that are non-anesthesia related. So similar to how Bobby Jean had a kind of change in practice, I also kind of had a bit of a change as well. I'm still very involved, still the medical director of the clinic. One of the things that was very interesting to me, and I actually ran into Dr. Kellett, which was interesting because it was one of the things I'd wanted to talk about. As we had come out of the pandemic, and I guess you could argue that we're not fully out, but as we were starting to crawl out of that space, prior to the pandemic, we were in full-scale optimization mode. We were seeing patients 10 to 11 days prior to surgery. Probably 75% of them were in person. After the pandemic, what we have seen, and most clinics, I would also agree, have seen this, is that we're seeing patients about 3 days ahead of time. Ooh. And about 65% of our patients are now on telephone.
And are they, the ones you're seeing, are they more deconditioned? Which is a global phenomenon?
The patients haven't changed. Okay. That's the problem.
Because ours went backwards.
Yeah, they actually are worse.
Well, there's been obviously a surge, and there's been of patients that are now coming back. But I would say the patient population and the type of surgeries that we've been doing haven't changed. And so I'm trying to figure out now how can we pivot and make the most of where we are right now as we scratch back and try to get patients being seen ahead of time. And one of the things that we've been doing is trying to identify the major problems the hospital has been having and also the things that the enhanced recovery programs, what problems are they having on the tail end? And so whereas maybe prior we were seeing a patient 10 or 11 days ahead of time and saying, how can we make you less malnourished or how can we make you less anemic? Now we're trying to say, well, if the hospital is having problems with postoperative respiratory failure, how can we bundle our interventions ahead of time to show value into those postoperative respiratory problems? CMS pays more when you have less hospital-acquired complications. Your Vizient score rankings go up when you can improve that safety domain. So that's been our target as of late. So we will try. It's a lot of identification. Yeah. It's a lot of communication. I'm a real big believer that if you don't know if a patient is anemic or malnourished or frail, you can't just put your thumb up and say it. You really need to be able to document it and document it in a discreet way. And then communicating throughout the perioperative period to try to make sure that patient gets the best care. That's our focus right now until we can potentially start getting patients seen earlier.
And Jeff, prehabilitation, the term prehabilitation, is that being embraced and actioned? You sound as though you got a long way ahead of the curve before COVID.
I think there's a difference between prehabilitation and surgical readiness.
Yes.
And prehabilitation, in my mind, the perfect, you see a lot of it in Canada, the UK, where they're actually doing physical training.
Exactly. and
I don't think that has been as embraced in the United States.
I don't think
that's my personal view. Now, I do think the idea of surgical readiness and trying to identifying optimizable conditions has definitely been embraced.
Yes.
I wrote a paper, we just published it, about identifying optimizable risks using all these numbers of calculators that we have, but how to really deploy them, because you can't, one of the things we can't optimize, I see 125 patients in our outpatient clinic a day. You can't optimize 120 patients. So when we start to look at who actually needs that optimization, it's about 20% of our patients. So it becomes very manageable to say 25 patients a day are going to get some type of anemia management or nutrition management, incentive spirometry for muscle training, and things like that.
So I think the team were just presenting at the American College of Surgeons from the UK, led by Professor Mike Grocott and working with Professor Sandy Jack and Dr. John Whittle, who was at Duke, where they've had this successful physical exercise, nutrition, but most importantly, adding mental resilience. So psychological support training, and it was stopped early because it reduced length of stay dramatically with long-term benefits, and is now going to be embraced at a government level. So,
and I think one of the things that Dr. Kellett had said many years ago was this idea behind the anesthesiologist trying to create the surgical home model, and the surgeons trying to create the enhanced recovery model. It's really the same thing. That's kind of what we talked about. But I'm a firm believer that if the pre-op clinic is going to really sustain itself, the preoperative optimization clinic, we can't be in isolation. And even when I think we were talking about optimization, I think there was still a bit of isolation in that. Like we were going to optimize the patient, make them public health. We were going to get everyone to stop smoking. But I don't think or maybe as a group, we didn't really show the surgeons how is that specifically going to reduce your wound dehiscence? How is that going to actually help with postoperative respiratory failure? So that's where we're trying to enhance recovery. That's the concept. It's like the pre-optimization clinic, I think, was left out of that because it was called enhanced recovery after surgery. So how can the pre-op clinic enhance that? And that's where we're trying to work with our surgeons at UAB.
I keep saying we need to recoin or rebrand ERAS.
And of course it is I guess it's trademarked, so we don't even use the term ERAS anymore. We use ERP, enhanced recovery
that's what
programs.
we hear a lot.
We say ERAS because you can only trademark the logo, you can't trademark the letters.
The letters, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble now. Sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry.
I mean, scratch that.
You can't trademark an abbreviation. There you go.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, it sounds like you got a lot ahead of you. What's kind of your plan? Like, where are you going to start, and where do you hope to be?
Well, right now, and the talk that we're giving tomorrow is, I do think that we can show the hospital more value if we can determine the financial viability of these clinics. Matt McAvoy, Gina Blitz, and I, we're giving a talk tomorrow on the financial viabilities of these clinics, how to set up a clinic where you're prearranged to be able to do that, and then identifying the billable components, and then showing the downstream value.
Yeah, fantastic.
And those kind of talks are really important. You have to be able to speak administrator speak.
Absolutely.
To be able to get them to see that.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I hope that they stream that and actually save that for content, because I know a lot of people I would love to drive to that conversation.
I do want to put in, we were talking about fellowships, and the one prior to that, UAB is starting a fellowship. It's going to be based in the perioperative medicine area, but it's actually a leadership fellowship. And it's one of the first of its kind. And so applicants will be able to come, get their MBA or MSHA, whichever one they choose.
Brilliant.
And they will, be working with people like me, with my vice president role throughout the hospital system, working with different leaders to see how the sausage is made in different areas.
Love that.
And also come out of it with a leadership degree.
Yeah.
So that we can get anesthesiologists at the table where these decisions are made.
And that's what we're gonna have to do to make sure to have a seat at the table.
I think so.
Because it comes down to the business cases at the end of the day.
It does.
The value proposition is there. It's clear.
You can. We talk about patient outcomes, and they're looking at how do you drive down the cost.
Yeah.
And I think there's a divide there. We have to.
Yeah. You mentioned you had an article come out. Whatever else you're working on? I always love to take this opportunity to plug your work.
Stephen Cohn has a book on perioperative medicine, and we wrote a couple chapters in that. One was just talking about what does an anesthesiologist do, and then the other one is talking about how does enhanced recovery work with in the perioperative medicine area. I worked with Sunil Sahai from Texas, and then this most recent one was in Current Anesthesiology Reports, which is called optimizing modifiable risks and using these different risk calculators. It's actually a very useful,
I was just thinking to myself, I'm like,
there's so much utility to the article, and so we're really proud of it.
Yeah,
so
hopefully we can get some links in our show notes.
Yeah,
put that in there.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
thank you guys, and thank you guys for what you do. This is just such a great venue.
Wow.
So for what
we really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations on your new role.
Oh, thank you very much. And now I think this is the 1,000th hour of the Radiothon. You've been able to stay up for 5 days straight.
I know.
You did
Lots of Red Bull and coffee, I will tell you.
We did that once, the Pockapalooza.
We did. Actually, we did. The
we did it. We
Preoperative Care Palooza. And we had conversations. Literally, I was up at 4 a.m. and 2 a.m. talking to people.
I slept under the boardroom table. We started in Cape Town and went around the world.
Yeah.
And came back to Cape Town.
I really want to come to Dingle. I think we're going to try to figure that out.
Well, that will be a Pockapalooza with everybody there.
My wife would go crazy if I told her we were going to go to Ireland for anything.
Well, come on.
Everyone is very, very welcome to the EBPOM Ireland meeting, Dingle. So, it is the best little meeting in the world.
I'll say it for the third time. Shout out to Dingle.
Shout out to Dingle.
Look it up. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Dingle, Ireland is the most beautiful place. It is on the west coast of Ireland, and EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine, hosts a meeting there for the last 26 years.
It'll be 26
It'll be 26 years.
And we've repositioned it to run into the food festival. So the town of Dingle, which is beautiful.
Well, and fantastic speakers. It's just fantastic speakers.
You know, they're always great speakers come to it. And then at the end of it, we run into the whole town. The streets turn into a big tapas restaurant, basically.
Yeah.
Every single provider, they're all, you get a ticket, book a ticket, so you wander around the town and you have fun. And there's music everywhere.
Yeah. Ton of continuing ed, ton of high-level conversations there. Do check it out. And thank you so much for listening to TopMedTalk. You can find this podcast as well as all of our other content from Anesthesiology 2022 and the 1,800 podcasts that we have done since ASA 2017.
Coming up on
Boston.
2 million downloads. I think we've had more. Just checking, there's a great attendance at the ASA this year.
Yeah.
But which is about 10, 11,000 people. They think.
I think so.
We've had more downloads in the last few days. It's not a competition.
15,000 were from my mom. So you do have to make that correction.
That's funny, Jeff.
Hi, thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. All right. So thanks so much for listening to TopMedTalk.
TopMedTalk. Thanks for downloading TopMedTalk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, TopMedTalk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.